Hi, everyone. I'm Alex. I'm the Director of Marketing at Perfect Video Conferencing. I'm here with Randy Marcotte. We wanted to welcome you to Ask the Expert. We're really glad to provide this to all of our life-size customers and help all administrators and users. I'm going to pass it on to Randy for some details about our first session, which will be an administrator training.
Great. Thanks, Alex. If you need us, we're at 516-282-2880. We're doing this as a refresher to some of the H323 and SIP registrations. If you're on the training channel, you're welcome to poke at all of those. Descriptions will give you kind of a narrative of what's covered here. But this one is designed really to just go end to end of when we're doing ClearSea registrations to the 220 or icons, how we do that, and then how we reconcile SIP or H323 registrations. And so you'll see the difference between that and the icon, and the difference between that and the 220. But ultimately, what this will create for you is a video ecosystem where your ClearSea infrastructure, or ours in the cloud, can act as a universal gateway for video registrations. And so more often than not, in traditional video conferencing, you're doing a dedicated IP address, an outside-facing IP address, and then a one-to-one NAT policy through your firewall to a local IP address. And all of that is still completely supported, but in the world of security and more complex firewalls, what we have found is that more often than not, that's a heavy IT event, and we want to avoid that. We wanted to make video just easy and simple and universally connectable. And so what ClearSea, like any other transit or gateway service for video, will do is the device registers as a ClearSea. So then what we do is we put ClearSea out in a public world where you can easily get to ClearSea, and then ClearSea routes your calls over to the device or the laptop or the mobile unit. In a legacy video world, we'd oftentimes call these gateways or transit servers. And those still exist. It's really simplifying the firewall relationship in a video conferencing and making for simplified dialing for your end users. Because really what you want your end users to do is just pick up the remote and make a call and not have to think about what's the IP address. So this gives a nice clean directory as well as a simplified dialing plan. And that, as the outcome, means that I should actually point on the how. So I'm going to move over to my desktop. I'll show content both as camera content, which is what you see me on screen, and desktop content, which is what we refer to as H329. So I'll move on over, change my input, and we go into this voiceover world. A couple of the resources you need. You'll need to have logged into your ClearSea infrastructure, and I'll show you where I do that. I've already gone over to one of the icon units, and I'll do that one first. And then you'll need to be able to log into one of the 220 systems. This happens to be a passport, and that's my local IP address, but I'll do that. So useful to have kind of your usernames, passwords, and login locations first. And so again, I'll just back out so you can see how I got to the ClearSea server. And I actually just did that by IP address. There's where I'm not logged in. So if you go to the publicly facing IP address of your ClearSea infrastructure, or ours, down at the bottom you'll see a login. You'll see that redirects you to that same IP address, but then :8181. So there's a secure connection that we do to connect to ClearSea. I'm already logged in, but you need to know the administrator login. Once you are in there, the assumption of ClearSea is that every device that's connecting to this as a gateway service or a transit service is a user. So the first step I'm going to take is I'm actually going to create a user for this PVC passport. So this unit, and I'm going to simplify some of the dialing stuff you see there, so I'm just going to call this one PVC passport. And it's a 220 instance. Get my extension a little simplified. I'll just make something up. Obviously, you may have a numbering convention you want to use, so I'll remember what that is. I'm actually going to then use that as the same password. What becomes important, you need to remember the extension. We don't necessarily care to put an expiration date. If you do, that's when it actually falls off the system. Disabled user. All right, so we're not going to worry about logins. We're going to keep that enabled. We have a number of groups in our infrastructure, and this is really about visibility. So if you're going to put them in a group, and I think we usually have a demo one, I'll put them in demo. Only those users within demo will see demo. So I'm going to log in. I'll put the display name as the same as the username. I usually use the same information just to make it easy when we're typing it in later. No description necessary. And the local credentials is where you put in that password. And again, I'm going to use the same as the extension. You can obviously make it much more secure if you want to. We want to turn off auto configuration and hit save. This now creates a user in our ClearSea infrastructure. And this one again is passport 80,010, username and password. Once I have those, and I can, here's a bunch of our users. I'm going to go and sort, show you this one again. There's a couple of things we can do with a user. If we know an external IP address on that, sort by groups, go to demo. Right, here's that PVC passport. If I already know a dial string that I want it to be reached on an external IP address, I can actually go in to this setting here. The menu on this is a little finicky. So you have to kind of go down and come up on the TVs. And then you can actually add in an associated dial string. So if I knew an external address, I can actually pre-populate that. This is optional, but I do know an external IP address on this particular unit. So I'm going to go ahead and put in that dial string. That way there, if someone's having problems connecting to it, maybe an external party doesn't have the ability to connect to ClearSea, you can still then register an external IP address so they can dial that directly. 72.139. And so that's the known external IP address on my one-to-one NAT rule. Again, an optional but useful tool to do if you want that to dial directly. Knowing the credentials. Then I'm going to go back to that passport. I'll keep them up on screen because I may want to cut and paste them. Keep that local. I then go, and I'm going to first show icon integration, which quite frankly is much easier. It's the newest product of Lifesize, so they're supporting what we call direct integration or tighter integration. And so when I do log in, and I'm on the latest software for icons, maybe Uncle Randy didn't remember his password. Yeah, sorry about that. Stand by. We change our default password, so hence I need to put the right one in there. I'm going to show you. The icons are Chrome preferable. And so I think I'm in IE, so if I run into any problems, it's user error. And what I'm going to look for on the icons is this ClearSea registration. Notice that we've got this one registered already. If I wanted this, and I've called this one Emeryville icon, I could change that to PVC passport. The value there, and I'll just load ClearSea so you can see, is that once we registered these devices to ClearSea, as I've done with this one, this is our production environment. Here's our ClearSea users. The moment I've done that, I have that Emeryville icon in there as a user on the system. So this current ClearSea infrastructure is obviously a different IP address. And you can see that here. If I wanted to register the icon to this other ClearSea server, I would take that IP address, those credentials, and enter them here. I'm not going to break the registration that we currently have in the icon, just because it's in place. Here's where I put those provisionings in. It rolls out to the server, checks, registers, and provisions. So then that's where it then shows up on your dial string. Fairly simple, much easier to do on the icon than it is on the 220s, which is why we're going to go over to the 220s and show where that resides. On the icon, you don't have to specify SIP or H323. ClearSea takes care of that for you. On the 220s, you have to specify either SIP or H323. Again, we have to log in. There's this PVC passport. And again, I need to remember the correct password. Once in a while, I get it right, which was this time. One thing we typically will do is we can often go into directory. Directory. And if we want to, we can register these devices so that they get a credential from ClearSea to show the user. So if I want this icon to give me the same directory as my desktop software, I would go in and register the LDAP credentials. There's another training on Video Center about how to do that. I don't want you to get confused between LDAP registration and H323 registration, which oftentimes happens. You can do both separately, but in order to get the dialing patterns to work, you have to do both. So you can register it there, and then I go back up to Preferences, and then I go to Communications. Here's your H323 settings, and we'll enter those in a moment. And then here's your SIP settings, and we'll register that as well. First, I want to point out a couple of help documents that we have. You're going to get, if you request it, we'll give you kind of the login that you've got a cheat sheet that talks about, again, creating the codecs just like I've done here, providing a password, logging in, and then here are the fields we need to do in order to register SIP and the drop downs that we enable, and then how we save it. The other one you'll have is how to do that in H323. So again, it's add the user, create those local credentials, navigate to H323, which I just showed, and then here are the H323 settings. You'll see that this correlates exactly to the username, password, and then there's some gatekeeper and authentication that might be a question to you, which is why we're going to document those for you, and it's showing that what you must or must not do. So first step, and I'm going to go over to, let's do H323 first. So back over to the browser, H323, making sure it's enabled. Get my username and password. So browser, DVC passport. I'm going to log out of this so we don't get any more instant messaging. Love these tools. They help us communicate. Also, don't want them to interrupt us when we're doing this. So. All right, so let's make this a PVC passport. Go back and get my extension, which is also my... Good. And then go back over to the instructions to remember what I need to put in there. So I'm on SIP, need H323. So enabled, username, password, gatekeeper mode, manual, and IP address. So go back over to my box, gatekeeper mode, manual, and then my IP address, which is the IP address of ClearSea. I don't have those memorized. I'm not terribly good about that kind of stuff. So here we go. Cut and paste. Default port for H323, so don't change it. And then I need to remember, what do I do for these other fields? So I'm going to scroll down so we can see them. H460. SIP one. Other required fields, gatekeeper name, and password. So I'm going to make sure when I go back to my device that that's the only other thing that I have enabled. Leave that disabled. Leave that disabled. Don't change. Don't change. And then back to the instructions, so you can see. Currently I'm in a SIP mood, keep choosing that one. Gatekeeper enabled, username the same, password the same. Reach out to the server, it'll resolve as registered. Right, now we show that we have a registered device. I needed to hit refresh and be patient, so device registered, H323. I can still certainly dial its IP address, but the other way to dial this device now would be to hit the auto attendant, and then this device has an extension. So if I went to any video unit, I could now dial the outside-facing interface of ClearSea and get the auto attendant, and then the auto attendant would ask me for an extension. The extension on this particular unit is 8010. 80,010, don't mind numbers. You could also dial this direct with the IP address, #, and the extension. So there's no change in how H323 dialing works, and this then creates that direct registration. The last one is SIP, and so then toggling back and forth, I'll now save you from the pain of me choosing the wrong document. Here's the SIP document, and again, we just need to do enabled and then some fields to choose. And so I'll do the same match the instructions against the login. So back over to SIP, I'm going to hit enabled. We know that it's the username is PVC passport. Back to the instructions. Notice that we're matching the same as I was creating the user. I'm keeping that consistent. Password, we're not using anything terribly secure, so we're using just the extension. And then back to the instruct server type, auto, registration through proxy, disabled. Go and double check. Auto, through proxy, disabled. Perfect, no changes. Scrolling on down. Registrar, enabled. Hostname needs to be the IP address of the device. Registrar, enabled. Hostname, IP address. And again, I suck at remembering them. I'm not changing any of the others. These are default ports, much like on H323, and I hit Save Changes. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. I wait till it registers. It's calling out to ClearSea. Refresh. And voila, we have a registration. So what this allows is some networks have some of your networks may have a preferred SIP dialing or partners that only allow for SIP dialing. You may have others that only allow for H323 dialing. And so you get the flexibility. ClearSea doesn't care. It will try both protocols. And so this makes this universal and connectivity easy. What this then gives you is a SIP URI. So now I become PVC passport at IP address. And so obviously you can then redirect this IP address to some DNS. If I wanted to call this ClearSea at perfectvideoconferencing.com, I could then become username PVC passport at IP address or DNS registered. Or I could be extension, which again is still that 80,010 at IP address. And so many different dialers will behave differently, and different infrastructures have a request for how you call. And this is where we want to make those registrations happen. And quite frankly, the directory service is clean. If that is completely confusing, you can look for the attachment that will have not only our instructions and narrative, but these awesome screenshots available. So I think I'm pretty clear when it comes to this stuff, but then sometimes I'm my own best audience. So what I would suggest too is, if it doesn't make any sense and Alex and I need to do a different recording for you specifically in your environment, we would be really glad to do that. We like customizing training for our customers. You can also open a ticket with us at support@perfectvc.com if that's going to be helpful. And then ultimately your reps over at lifesize.com will support these as trouble tickets with or without our team assisting, because in the grand scheme of things, what we want you to do is have access to this technology working seamlessly and easily. And if these instructions don't help, again, we'll record something specifically for you. We'll get you some life-size help, or we'll just log in and do it for you. Remember, though, if we are making changes on your behalf and you're not one of our premium support plans, there can be some incremental charges to that assistance. So we don't want to make promises and then bill you if you don't know it's coming. But we do it cheaply, effectively, and we're glad to help. So, Alex, I don't know if you've got any follow-up on this, or if you feel like we've covered the content sufficiently, and should we hang up, or what's your call on this? I give you a moment to unmute. All right.
Sorry about that. No, I thought everything was great. I have put on that how to reach us, and we will be adding those documents that Randy reviewed to this recording. So you can find those.
Thanks for setting this up, Alex. If you are ever in a space, again, where you want to come into one of these sessions and ask questions live, we do these once a month, and then the content is usually very flexible, so that if we're planning to do a certain session but you want to change it for content that you need, we'd be glad to modify our agenda as you dictate. So thanks for tuning in. We look forward to earning more of your business, and we appreciate what you've done with us so far. Cheers.